What's up, sports fans? Welcome to V SPORTZ Insider. So the year of 2020 is approaching the end. We're gonna talk about the top 10 pound for pound fighters in the world, so stay tuned. So before we start with the actual top 10 pound for pound list, we're gonna do a few honorable mentions. Those are the fighters that definitely do deserve to be on the top 10 list, but for one reason or another they are being left out at this point in time. So the first honorable mention is Manny Pacquiao, an all-time great fighter, a legend of the sport. Since his last defeat to Jeff Horn in 2017, he had a successful comeback where he defeated Lucas Matthysse, Keith Thurman, Adrian Broner, but he's also 42 years old and he's been very inactive lately. He's probably looking for that one retirement fight. So Manny Pacquiao is definitely a pound for pound caliber fighter, even at this advanced age of his career. Next up is Anthony Joshua, the unified heavyweight champion of the world, the best resume in the heavyweight division. If you look at it, there's a ton of top 10 fighters, ton of great fighters. Dillian White, Carlos Takam, undefeated champion Joseph Parker, Alexander Povetkin, Kubrat Pulev, all-time great, one of the greatest heavyweights in history, Vladimir Klitschko, and Andy Ruiz. That was his only defeat, but he managed to come back and dominate Andy Ruiz in the rematch. Anthony Joshua is definitely a pound for pound caliber fighter, and same with Tyson Fury. He's also a great fighter with a very good resume, a great victory over all-time great Vladimir Klitschko, exposed Deontay Wilder, knocked him out. So once the heavyweight situation gets resolved, once the undisputed heavyweight champion gets crowned, he will rank high up in the top 10 pound for pound. And also I would like to mention Gennady Golovkin, who's on the downside of his career right now, but the only defeat came at the hands of Canelo Alvarez. And if Golovkin happens to secure a great victory, defeats a great fighter, then he might be back on the top 10 pound for pound. But as for right now, he's on the downside, and we'll see what happens with him moving forward. So this brings us to the top 10 pound for pound fighters in the world in 2020. So let's get started. Number 10 is Juan Francisco Estrada. Estrada is one of the great fighters at the lower weight classes, two-weight division world champion, former flyweight champion, the unified flyweight champion, and the reigning WBC and the lineal super flyweight champion. He had a great fights with another pound for pound star, or should I say former pound for pound star, Sor Rungvisai, who dethroned the former pound for pound king Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez. So first fight, Rungvisai defeated Estrada by majority decision. In the rematch, Estrada came back, defeated Rungvisai. He's also had a very good resume of his own. Other than that, he's beaten Carlos Cuadras 2 times, stopped him in the rematch, defeated guys like Devane Beeman, Brian Veloria, and has defended his unified flyweight championship 5 times, in addition to 2 title defenses of his current WBC and the lineal super flyweight championship of the world. Number 9 is Josh Taylor. Taylor is the undefeated unified WBA IBF light welterweight champion of the world, and also a winner of the WBSS, the World Boxing Super Series, at the 140 pound division. He has defeated fighters like Victor Postol, the undefeated prospect contender Ryan Martin, the undefeated champion Ivan Baranchek, another undefeated champion Regis Prograis, which was the WBSS final. And now Josh Taylor is on a collision course with the WBC and WBO light welterweight champion of the world Jose Carlos Ramirez, in a fight that should determine the undisputed king of the light welterweight division. Number 8 on the list is Errol Spence Jr., the unified WBC IBF welterweight champion of the world. Errol Spence has the overall best resume in the welterweight division at the moment. His last 3 victories were pay-per-view fights against Danny Garcia, Sean Porter, and Mikey Garcia. He became a champion in 2017 by defeating Kell Brook in Kell Brook's hometown of Sheffield, England. It was an 11th round stoppage. He then proceeded to have a few title defenses, defeating Peterson, Ocampo, and then proceeded to have 3 pay-per-view fights. First, he defeated Mikey Garcia, a former featherweight, which he didn't get a lot of credit for, rightfully so, and then went on to defeat 2 legitimate top welterweight fighters in Showtime Sean Porter. It was a split decision victory. It was a very close fight, razor thin decision. Some people had Sean Porter winning, many people had Errol Spence winning. Either way, he scored a knockdown which ensured him victory, and in his most recent fight he defeated Danny Swift Garcia by unanimous decision. Spence does have an opportunity to get rated higher than he is right now if he defeats fellow WBO welterweight champion Terence Crawford and eventually proceeds to light middleweight and middleweight and achieves success in those weight classes. Number 7 is Artur Beterbiev, the unified WBC, IBF, and the lineal light heavyweight champion of the world. Artur Beterbiev has a record of 15-0 with 15 knockouts, defeating top opposition all the way since he was a prospect. He was defeating solid fighters and ex-champions such as Travis Cloud, Gabriel Campillo, and most recently in the last 2 years he extended his KO streak, knocking out Callum Johnson, Red Hot Kalajic, and the undefeated WBC and lineal light heavyweight champ, the man that dethroned Adonis Stevenson, Alexander Gvozdyk. It was a great fight where Beterbiev was able to prevail and secure a TKO victory and retire undefeated champion Alexander Gvozdyk. Number 6 is the former pound-for-pound king Vasyl Lomachenko, former 3-weight world champion, great resume, became the world featherweight champion in his 3rd pro fight, defeating Gary Russell Jr., secured a few title defenses, moved up, defeated Roman Martinez by a spectacular KO. Loma's resume just goes on and on. Great fighters such as Rigondeaux, Linares, Luke Campbell, victories over Jose Pedraza and Anthony Crolla, and finally a defeat to Teofimo Lopez, the new undisputed lightweight champion of the world. So obviously Lomachenko, who was number 1 or in some cases number 2 pound-for-pound fighters in the world, dropped down to number 6, but he does have a potential to come back. He definitely does have a lot of options. If he moves down to the super featherweight division, there's a super fight with Shakur Stevenson, but we'll see. For now, Lomachenko is number 6 pound-for-pound. Which brings us to number 5 pound-for-pound, Teofimo the Takeover Lopez. Teofimo Lopez is the undisputed lightweight champion of the world, the youngest undisputed 4-belt champ in history of boxing. His resume is not as packed as some of the other fighters on the pound-for-pound list, but he does hold by far the best single victory of anybody on this list, and that's a unanimous decision victory over former pound-for-pound king Vasyl Lomachenko. And let's not forget, prior to that, an impressive knockout of a champion Richard Comey, and also a few other very good contender level victories such as Masayoshi Nakatani, who just recently knocked out Felix Verdejo, also Diego Magdaleno and Eddie Stotley. 2 KO victories for Teofimo Lopez. Definitely Teofimo Lopez is a big lightweight. He does have an opportunity to move up and challenge some of the great light welterweights in the world such as Jose Carlos Ramirez or the Muhammad Ali Trophy winner and the unified champion Josh Taylor. So definitely the future is bright for Teofimo, and he does have an opportunity to further succeed in the pound-for-pound ratings. Number 4, pound for pound, is the former undisputed cruiserweight champion of the world, Alexander Usyk. Alexander Usyk, he's just got a crazy cruiserweight resume, the best cruiserweight resume in the history of the division. Also, he beat Holyfield's record for the least amount of fights to win his first cruiserweight title. So he went to Poland to defeat Krzysztof Glowacki, then undefeated cruiserweight champion, coming off a career-defining victory over Marco Huck. Then went to the USA, defeated Tabiso Makunu, defeated Michael Hunter. He then signed up for the World Boxing Super Series and brought his WBO world title in with him, defeated Marco Huck in Germany in the quarterfinals, proceeded to defeat Myris Bridis in the semifinals in Latvia, unifying the WBO and the WBC Cruiserweight Championship. Let's not forget Myris Bridis. He's right now the IBF and lineal Cruiserweight Champion of the world. He won the second edition of the World Boxing Super Series, defeating Dorticos in the finals. Just goes on to show how great Alexander Usyk's cruiserweight resume is. And then in the World Boxing Super Series finals, he went to Russia, defeated another undefeated fighter, Murat Gassiev, the unified WBA and IBF cruiserweight champion of the world. It was the undisputed unification in the WBSS finals in Russia against the Russian fighter on his home territory. Alexander Usyk shut Gassiev out, proceeded to a dominant unanimous decision victory en route to winning the WBSS, the first cruiserweight edition of the World Boxing Super Series. He then went on to defend his undisputed titles in England against Tony Bellew on pay-per-view. He knocked out Tony Bellew in 8 rounds in a dominant fashion. And right now Alexander Usyk, he moved up to heavyweight. He defeated Chaz Witherspoon, stopped him in 7 rounds, and most recently defeated Derek Chisora by unanimous decision, and he's now a mandatory challenger for Anthony Joshua's WBO heavyweight championship of the world. Definitely a crazy resume for Alexander Usyk, high quality fighter, former Olympic gold medalist, who definitely now has an opportunity to proceed and even become pound for pound king if he manages to become the world heavyweight champion. And in his post-fight interview after Derek Chisora, that's what he said. He wants to become not a champion but the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. Number 3, pound for pound, is Terence Bud Crawford, the undefeated 3-weight world champion, the former lightweight, former light welterweight, and the reigning welterweight champion of the world, former undisputed light welterweight champion of the world. Terence Bud Crawford is definitely one of the top pound for pound fighters in the world. If you just look at his resume, he is the only one that holds a legitimate victory over Yuriokis Gamboa, an undefeated Yuriokis Gamboa in the lightweight division. That was the first defense of his title, which he had won after going to Scotland and dethroning Ricky Burns in his hometown. After Burns and Gamboa, he defeated Ray Beltran and moved up to light welterweight division, defeated Delorme, Durigine, Hank Lundy, unified against undefeated Victor Postal, defeated John Molina, defeated Olympic gold medalist Felix Diaz, and knocked out Julius Ndongo in the undisputed unification inside 3 rounds. A very impressive victory for Terence Crawford, after which he moved up to the welterweight division, where he is the most avoided fighter at the moment. He defeated Jeff Horn, an undefeated Jeff Horn coming off a career-defining victory over Manny Pacquiao. He stopped Jeff Horn in 9 rounds and then defended his title 4 more times, stopping Jose Benavidez, destroying Amir Khan, defeating Egidijus Kavaliauskas, the Mean Machine, by TKO 9 in a fight where he encountered some problems. He was knocked down, he came back and stopped Mean Machine, and in his most recent fight destroyed Kell Brook inside 4 rounds. It wasn't the best version of Kell Brook, the same as it wasn't the best version of Amir Khan, but 2 very impressive performances by Terence Crawford, and he's in a position right now where he's having difficulties securing a unification fight. He's having difficulties securing Manny Pacquiao fight, securing Errol Spence fight, and we'll see what happens from this point on from Terence Crawford. But if he wants to proceed further into top 2 or maybe top 1 pound for pound fighters in the world, he definitely needs to unify the welterweight division. Number 2 pound for pound fighter on the list is Naoya the Monster Inoue. Naoya Inoue is the 3-weight world champion, the former light flyweight world champion, former super flyweight world champion, and the reigning and defending bantamweight champion of the world, as well as the winner of the World Boxing Super Series. Another crazy resume if you look at it. Naoya Inoue, he won his first world title in his 6th professional fight, knocking out Adrian Hernandez in the 6th round. Then he defended his title once and moved up 2 weight classes, challenged the long-time reigning champion, the Argentinian Omar Narvaez, destroyed him inside 2 rounds. An impressive victory for young Inoue at the time. He went on and defended his super flyweight championship for 7 times, defeating fighters like Kohei Kono from Japan, Antonio Nieves, and David Carmona of Mexico. He then moved up to his 3rd weight class, where he absolutely annihilated Jamie McDonald of Great Britain, knocked him out in the 1st round, became 3-weight world champion, and entered the World Boxing Super Series, which was the apex of his career so far. In his first fight, he destroyed Juan Carlos Payano inside 1 round. He proceeded to the semifinals, went to Scotland, destroyed Emmanuel Rodriguez, the reigning IBF world champion, inside 2 rounds, and then proceeded to the final match, where he had an all-time great slugfest against an all-time great fighter, Nonito Donaire. It was a great back and forth fight. Donaire was dropped. Naoya Inoue was tested. He felt the power of Donaire, but he managed to prevail with his own power. He dropped Donaire, he secured the victory and won the World Boxing Super Series. And after that, the COVID happened, so there was a pause of almost 1 year. He recently came back in October, 31st October. He fought a top contender, Jason Maloney of Australia, dominated him, knocked him out in an impressive fashion in the 7th round, defending his WBA, IBF, and the lineal bantamweight championships of the world. And just like Usyk and Terence Crawford, Naoya Inoue has an opportunity to become a pound-for-pound king in the near future. If he moves up to the super bantamweight and wins championships over there, it's going to be hard to deny that Naoya the Monster Inoue would be the best fighter in the world. And number 1, the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world is Saul Canelo Alvarez. Canelo is only 30 years old and he's got the best resume in the world of boxing. He's already a veteran of the sport, and if you look at it, 53 victories, 1 defeat and 2 draws. The only defeat coming at the hands of then pound-for-pound king Floyd Mayweather in a fight where Canelo was in his early 20s. He was weight drained from 155 to 150 in a fight which proved to be a valuable experience for him. If you look at the resume of Canelo Alvarez, the light middleweight champion of the world, the middleweight champion of the world, the light heavyweight champion of the world, and the super middleweight WBA regular champion of the world, a title that a lot of people are disputing at the moment because it's a secondary WBA title at the weight, secondary to the super belt of Callum Smith, a fighter that Canelo Alvarez is scheduled to fight next. But let's pause for a second and take a look at Canelo Alvarez's resume resume. So basically, almost as a teenager, he was a champion in 154 pounds division. He defeated Matthew Hutton, Ryan Rhodes, Alfonso Gomez, Shane Mosley, and Josecito Lopez, and then proceeded to defeat a prime, undefeated Austin Trout in a unification fight, after which he was defeated in a catchweight fight by Floyd Mayweather. But Canelo, he learned his lesson, he bounced back, he became the biggest pay-per-view star in the world of boxing. He defeated Alfredo Angulo, defeated Arislandi Lara in a very close fight, destroyed James Kirkland, and then moved up and became the WBC and lineal middleweight champion of the world, defeating Miguel Cotto in 2015. After that, Canelo, he extended his winning streak, knocked out Amir Khan, knocked out Liam Smith, the WBO light middleweight champion, then dominated Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., and then went on to have two all-time great fights with Gennady Triple G Golovkin. The first fight was an all-time slugfest classic, split decision draw. It was for Canelo's lineal title, for Golovkin's WBA, WBC, IBF middleweight titles. In the rematch, Canelo came back, had another close call, another close fight, but this time prevailed, defeated Gennady Golovkin by majority decision, and captured the WBA and the WBC middleweight championship of the world, cementing himself as one of the top pound-for-pound fighters. After that, Canelo Alvarez proceeded to the super middleweight division, where he won his current WBA regular championship, knocking out Rocky Fielding in the third round, then came back to the middleweight division, unified once again with Daniel Jacobs, got his IBF middleweight title, defeated him by unanimous decision, and then moved up to light heavyweight, a move that nobody thought was possible. Nobody thought Canelo was going to go that far. He moved up and fought Sergey the Crusher Kovalev, knocked him out in the 11th round, and cemented himself as the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. And right now, with success come the haters. A lot of people are trying to pick something out of Canelo's resume. A lot of people are trying to call for Canelo to fight a specific fighter. Everybody was calling for him to fight Callum Smith, the WBA and the lineal super middleweight champion of the world. And that's what Canelo just did. He signed to fight Callum Smith for the WBA, WBC, and the Ring Magazine, the lineal super middleweight championships of the world, which is going to cement Canelo Alvarez as the 4-weight world champion. And should he defeat Callum Smith, will only confirm his place as the undisputed #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. So that was the pound for pound list by V Sports Insider. Tell us what you think in the comment section. Share, like, and subscribe, and see you on the next one.